So let's talk about modeling faces. All right, so I just created a cylinder for a head, um, and I just drew it. I haven't done anything to it. I just put it in there. Um, I'm gonna go to the Modify tab. For whatever reason, I have lost my ability, my modeling tools that are here that we worked with in 2400. So I don't have the ability to do the Swift loop over here, but that's something you guys might want to work with more. We covered that in the 2400 class about adding Swift loops, especially along edges, right? So we'll talk more about that, about moving things around. But I want to talk a little bit about making faces and how you make decisions about things you're going to do. So I created this cylinder, and I'm going to have a character that's going to have two eyes, and those actually look like a good location. The default just happens to be pretty good, and I may leave it. But right, that's a location for eyes, nose, and mouth. And I don't have enough segments to do everything I want. I want to move one of these segments to the top, or you can pull off a Swift loop. So I'm going to add another segment for that. I need another separation between the nose and the mouth, so I'm going to add one for that. And then I want another loop at the bottom. Okay, so 8 is going to get me all the parts and pieces I need. I'm just going to make quick adjustments to this. This is 25 by 80. That works. Looks sort of like a Frankenstein head, but as we soften it, or, you know, there are things we can do to soften it that will help. Cap segments on my top. Am I going to need to do anything? Probably. So let's say I want to pull off, or I want to round out his head. And so 3 cap segments look like they might work. This is something you're going to acquire and be better at over time. The more you do it, the better your original judgment will be about making decisions. Okay, so I've got this set up the way I need it to be, and I'm just going to now convert it to an editable poly. Okay, and edge, and I can select, I want to select this edge right here and loop it, and now I can move it, and I want to do that. I can't create that Swift loop up from here, but you can from here. So for now that'll work. So I'm going to select this one right here and loop, and I'm going to move it to the bottom. And what this is going to do is when I add that turbo smooth, it's going to keep it from tessellating and creating those weird edges. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is locate my eyes, and let's just say I'm good with where those are. And then I'm going to need my nose. I'm going to pull off my nose right there. But I want my nose to be longer, so I'm going to pull this down. It's about right there. And then my mouth, let's see, let's just make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so I've got this set up. Now, let's go ahead and add that turbo smooth so you can see what I'm talking about with the getting rid of the tessellations. Okay, see how now when I've added the turbo smooth, I don't get any weird pinching or bunching. It's called tessellation when he does weird stuff. It's stopped that from happening. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna turn this off. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to take a look at my. I think they're good for what I want to do. You can. Whoops, what happened here? Oh, that's my mouth. Okay, so this is what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna start with the eye. Actually, let's do this. Edge, loop, and pull this up. I want my eyes to be a little bit bigger. Okay, so now I'm going to come to my polygons. This is going to be, these are going to be my eyes. And I'm just going to go ahead and select both of them. Okay, those are going to be my eyes. What I'm going to do is come down here to Inset, and you see it's inset my eyes. Now what that's going to do is allow me to create these eye sockets. Alright, so well, looks pretty good. Okay, so I've got that set up, and I'm going to now bevel those negatively. Oops. Wrong direction. There we go. Inside my head. just a little bit. I just want them to create eye sockets. Looks pretty good. That works. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is accept it. And then my nose. Now, you can do two different things here depending on what you want your nose to look like. Actually, do multiple things, but you can add another object and attach it, and so that you would have a separate nose, because your nose is going to move with your model. There's no reason to, do anything different. I sometimes like to create a cone and attach it as my nose, and then modify it from there. But since this is about extruding, I'm just going to go ahead and extrude a nose, and not quite that much. Okay, so now I have this basic kind of nose, small little bump. Kind of cute. I can hinge this from edge. Oops, I didn't accept the other one. I want to accept the, well, I'll show you this one too. Okay, so hinge from edge, and whoops, we're gonna put in, it's not doing anything. Why aren't you doing anything? Oh, I didn't tell it which edge. There we go. You have to pick the edge. So I had to pick the edge that I wanted to hinge from, and now I can control, right? So I can create, if I want a little bit more of a realistic nose, I can do that. And 6 is the number of segments at the bottom. Let's do 3, 4. Okay, and so that creates that little hinged nose. And so all I did was come over here, hinge from edge, select that. You then have to tell it which edge. You have to pick the edge, and then you put in your parameters. And I don't want it to go any further. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And then now my mouth. And so I'm going to select, I'm holding down the control key, those, and I'm going to bevel inward to create my mouth. Okay, and let me adjust this head a little bit. Now, there you go. I mean, very simple, easy, fast, quick way to create a face. And you see now, whoops. Once I turn Turbo Smooth on, how it's just kind of softened everything up. And I might need to go back in and add more geometry, but look at that. It looks pretty good, right? Could come in and add my eyeballs into my socket. I would recommend creating eyelids, and you can, to make that simple, you can just create a sphere. And then let's edit this thing. We're going to use a hemisphere. And I'll make the radius 6. Let's move that back in a little bit more. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and clone this as a copy, and then the copy will not be a hemisphere. It's going to be my eyeball. And it needs to be a little bit smaller than my eyelid. Okay, you can see how it's starting to work. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my head, and I'm going to attach my first sphere, and that's going to become my, okay. Let's go back to Edible Poly, using that here. I can make adjustments to my vertices to create, to change the outside of the mouth. Or the inside for that matter. Oops. So I'm just starting to use the vertices to sculpt his mouth so it's not quite so square. Okay. That looks a little happier there. There we go. Now, obviously, this is just thrown together very quickly to show you how easily and quickly you can model a face for your character. You can create other features too. Like for instance, I'm gonna, oops, clicked off of him, sorry. I'm gonna select the polygons that are on his cheeks. And I'm going to inset those, and then I'm going to bevel those outward. So that when I go back to my turbo smooth, well, they need to be bump out a little bit more. But if you bump out a little bit more, you just kind of get these little cute little cheeks like I had on my Sprite. And so you can continue to do that and model that, work with that, work with his head. Turn this off. For instance, let's select edge. Whoop. And then I can start, whoops, sorry about that. Whoop. Oh, it didn't pick what I wanted. And start to morph his head. Whoop. There we go. So he's not quite such a whoop. And then the last one is a vertex. And I kind of got that off a little bit there. I wasn't paying attention. There we go. And so his head is now a little less Frankenstein-like. And you just continue to work on that and sculpt that, and eventually it becomes, but for where we are, for where you guys are, that's a good place. Okay, let me know if you have any questions.